listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today we have a CPTSD episode. So I want to talk about having CPTSD and being in a relationship. And I want to be very specific here. When I mean relationship, I mean a intimate, close relationship between two people who love each other and are thinking about being in a long-term situation and maybe someday getting married and having a family. Not a casual relationship or friends or family relationships. This is more specifically to be a couple. Okay, so as I'm sure many of us have experienced throughout our lives, especially as we reach adulthood, and we grow up and we experience different types of relationships and all sorts of, bad and good parts about everything that we have. We soon learn real quickly what we like and what we don't like, what we are looking for in a relationship, and of course, what we are not looking for. And there are things that turn us off, and obviously, of course, there are the opposite, where there are things that turn us on about someone. What makes us attracted to our partner, and what makes us attracted to a certain type of man or woman. So a neurotypical who doesn't have trauma-related incidents from their past, they tend to, when you are looking for a relationship and you're, going out in the dating world, it is easier, I guess, in a way today now that there's a real push and the ease of use when it comes to online dating compared to even in the early 2000s and especially in the 90s and beyond, when internet wasn't really a thing. And if you wanted to meet somebody, you either went out on a blind date, you went out to a club or a bar, or someone set you up, or you just happened to meet them in a situation, maybe at work, maybe out at a like a party or something, or just in a random place that you just happened to be at. And it was, I guess, when I grew up, I never really dated until I was in my mid-20s, and I met all of my girlfriends online, and a lot of it is related to my trauma, so it was exactly what I'm going to get into. You'll have to excuse me, I'm kind of developing a cough, so I may cough a few times. I'm going to try and edit them out. I may miss one. Just a heads up for you listening in the background if you've got earphones on. Okay, so we're going to talk about those who have trauma when it comes to dating, finding somebody, meeting them for the first couple times, and then if it works out, going and actually starting a relationship and the steps involved and the time that you put into it, time and effort to making it a meaningful, deep relationship. Getting to the point where you say the I love you words and even someday looking at maybe, getting engaged, getting married, having kids. Personally, I have only had 3 relationships, and there's only been one that has really been any kind of a length, like a period of time. And I don't include ones where it's off again, on again kind of thing. That's different, because when you're going on and off, that's not a healthy situation. Most people, when they get into that kind of relationship, they don't even realize, excuse me, they don't even realize that that is something that they really shouldn't be getting into, because it's not a healthy relationship by any means. And you do need to be more like strong for yourself. Now, I'm not saying that people who are in on again, off again type relationships have trauma or issues. It's just that they want to be with that person so bad that they want to take breaks, or they want to take time apart just to see if, things are still good later on down the road. Maybe they just need some time to figure out a few things, that kind of stuff. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they have trauma or CPTSD, to be specific. Okay, so in my first relationship, I didn't know at all that I had CPTSD, of course. I was just someone who in my mind, had a very difficult time finding somebody. I had a hard time, getting out there. I was very insecure about my self-confidence. I didn't know if I would be successful. Like, I kind of felt like at any point that I was deserving or worthy of being with somebody, because I felt like nobody really would find me interesting or attractive. So there was a physical factor, there was that mental factor when it comes to, believing in yourself and wanting to be in a relationship. So I kind of had a choice. I remember when I was just beginning to get to know this person, I had a choice. She was not exactly what you would call the most attractive looking, but like if you were to do any rankings, I'm not really someone who likes to do that kind of stuff. I would say it's a 6. Like, she wasn't ugly, but she wasn't exactly beautiful by any means. And I had this situation, or this, I don't know what you want to call it. It's like I had these expectations that were not the most realistic for me at that time. Now, when I was doing this, I was 26. So this is about 18 years ago, and my expectations and what I felt was, deserving, like what I deserved, was not realistic as it is today. Like, I'm a lot better today, or more understanding and realistic when it comes to what I feel is a right fit for me. And I don't mean just physically, I mean in every aspect of a woman, and when it comes to relationships. So I had a choice, and I remember we got together, and I think what it was is we saw a movie that day, and we left. We stood at the mall at exit, and we talked for a bit, and then we left. And I remember standing there, and as I was walking to my vehicle, thinking, I don't know, like, like something just didn't it's like I was afraid or I was scared of if this was going to be right. Like if I liked her, I was battling a lot of these like inner thoughts. Like, I don't know if she's attractive enough, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if I can get anything better. It was like this fight back and forth, like inside my head. And ultimately I gave the benefit of the doubt to trying, and we didn't start dating right away. So it wasn't like immediately we were dating and being in a relationship. She was kind of wanting to be friends at first and get to know each other. And we hung out occasionally. And then by the September of that year, we decided to start. I can't exactly remember how it happened because it's such a long time ago, but we decided to start dating. And the thing is if I had known what I knew today about my mental health back then, I had a feeling that this relationship would have lasted a very short amount of time, because I was in the kind of place in my life where I didn't know or believe that there'd be somebody else better. Like, I really felt like, how sometimes, and I think it happens more within women than men. Now, I could be wrong. And if I am wrong, please message me, contact me and let me know, or correct me. And I will make a correction in my next episode. But it's a situation where you feel like you're in a bad place, but at the same time, you're so worried, and you think that you're not going to find somebody better, or that this is as good as you're going to get. You should just stay with her, put up with it, blah, blah, blah. It's like being in an abusive relationship, and it's bad, but you refuse to leave because you think you're not going to find anybody. Your partner has manipulated and abused you to the point where he's made you, or she has made you think that you're not going to find anything better. And so you stay, and your friends and your family all like wonder, why are you staying? Like, this person's not good for you. Why do you continue to do this? And I never necessarily had discussions with people about it. Like, it was pretty hush hush, kind of, more or less. And I just remember, especially towards the last, 6 months before I met my second girlfriend, I just remember like thinking, really legitimately thinking, I just am going to stick around. I'm not going to give up on this. Who knows, blah, 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 because I don't think I'm going to find somebody who's better than this person. And it sounds so ridiculous at that point, now that I think about it, that I should have, I'm kicking myself because I realize now that that's absolutely not true. That was such a stupid thing to think. And I understand for a lot of people out there, it is extremely difficult. You face so much abuse, and your negative thoughts are clouding and overwhelming you, that's all you think about. And it's very difficult for you to finally take that step and move away and break out and just say enough is enough and leave and be single for a while and get recovering and find that positive, healthy spot in your life. I get that it's extremely hard, and a lot of people, they just don't get out. And then there are those that finally have had enough and they leave. And for those who have done that, good for you. I'm glad that you've done it. I hope that you never face a situation like that again. And if you unfortunately do, I hope that you feel brave enough to do it immediately and not take months or years to get out. So yeah, I had a hard time wanting to get out. It was in a point in my life where I really didn't think I was going to find anybody. I hate to admit it, but I was living at home. I wasn't exactly financially in a spot that I could just get out and do what I want and go where I want and live on my own. I didn't have a lot of money. So I kind of felt like that was just the way it was going to go. And then it got to a point, and it was about 2012 or just before 2012, where I had really had enough. And the light finally came on in my mind, and everything just was done. We weren't really doing anything at all for months on end after that. And then I met my second girlfriend online. And this is the ironic part about all this. And I'm sure a lot of you have dealt with this, especially women out there who have jealous ex-boyfriends, where I was friends with her, but that was like, it was just teetering on the point of just no longer wanting to be friends with her, because I realized that she was just not at all healthy for me. And so the two of us hit it off right from the very first date, and we became a couple. And she got like upset and jealous because I wasn't hanging out with her anymore. And I just remember she was trying to be manipulative and all this stuff, and I didn't give in. And my girlfriend at the time said that she didn't want me talking to her anymore. And so, realizing that, yeah, this is obviously not a good thing at all, I stopped talking to her. And she even tried to get me to come back. And when I said no, then all of a sudden she turned the tables and tried to make me the bad person. Like, you know, if you ever contact me again, blah, 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 I'll call the police, all this stuff. And I just remember looking at that and going and laughing and just going, oh my God, like, you're crazy. And I was so glad it was done. You know, so the second relationship, it only lasted, like, even though we were finished a year later, or just over a year later, it was officially done late December before. And it's a very unique situation. Maybe it's not that unique. Maybe it's just not as common as some other relationship situations. But she and I was still at a point in my life where I was too blind to see reality, to know that this was just not going to work in the long run. That, you know, it's a mistake. Don't do it. You're just not realizing, because the fact that you're blinded by love, you're blinded by that fear of being alone, or that, again, you're not going to find anybody better. And here's the thing. This is a trauma response. Like, it's something that has afflicted so many people in the world, in many different cultures and many different countries, where they just aren't in a healthy place. Mentally, they're not healthy. They want to be with somebody. They don't want to be alone. They're trying to find the right person for them. They literally believe that if they're better off with that person, whether it's that man or that woman, than being by themselves. And that they need that person to complete them, to make them happy. that if they're alone, that they're not happy, like they, and at the same time, it all leads to different things, like not taking care of yourself, not getting your own needs met, not setting healthy boundaries, believing that you can't make it on your own, that person is, you have to have them in your life in order to be happy or to feel successful, or to be able to go forward in life, and that without them you're going to be alone and miserable and sad, and that's just not a healthy lifestyle. And they don't realize this at first, and it's because they're not capable in that moment to see the truth, to see what's really going on with themselves, is that in some form or another in their past, whether it's recent or in their childhood or teenage years, there has been some sort of abuse, whether it's mental, emotional, physical abuse. Something in their life has caused them to ultimately feel this way, to believe this sort of behavior is appropriate or is the right way to live. Because there are a lot of people out there that get manipulated emotionally and mentally in a relationship or in their family by their parents or a sibling or one of their aunts or uncles or whoever, like a guardian, like there's all sorts of different examples out there, but they get abused and manipulated and treated completely unfairly and so poorly in their life so many times that they learn to believe and think that they're going to be better with that person despite all of that abuse and all that harm that they go through all the time. And when they finally do break away and they finally find the nerve and the bravery to get away from it and to leave, whether it's they move out of their parents' house and go find their own place with their friends, that it just is a repeating pattern. And they've proven this. There is proof out there that a person, whether a man or a woman, grew up in a narcissistic family or abusive family, that they will tend to become attracted to the same kind of person because it's what they know, right? They don't know anything really other than that. So they fall into the same trap. They fall for a narcissist or an abusive partner, and it's just, they keep playing the same old story and they're not able to break away. They can't see the signs. They believe it. The person is manipulating them, thinking, oh yeah, you're going to be no better off. There's nobody else out there who's going to love you. I'm the only one who truly cares about you, blah, blah. It's the same storyline. It's very common, and they manipulate them. And so they stay and they think it's going to get better. And it doesn't, of course, because it's just a game that they play to keep them in line. And until they finally realize the truth and they find the help that they need in a therapist that can help them break away from this and realize that this isn't the way that they can live. They can be happier by themselves. They can be happy by themselves, that they can love themselves, that the only thing that matters is how they are, what they do, take care of their own needs, make themselves happy. And if they find somebody who really, really love them for who they are, then that's a bonus. That's great. But it's not a requirement for you to be happy. And so once someone can truly believe that and can heal themselves from this trauma that they've experienced, then they have a much better chance of finally having a happy relationship. And when that is healthy and can be long-term, but the thing is you have to continue working on yourself. You have to continue the healing process, do your work, do your processing, and you've got to keep your ears open and your mind aware of people like that. And you got to avoid these kind of people. Otherwise, you could just fall back into that trap again. So this is it. I'm not saying that I was necessarily mentally manipulated and abused by this second person. It wasn't really like that. It's just because of my trauma experiences and this belief that this is the person who I should be with, because I don't know if I'm going to find another person. You know, you have this negative aspect, these thoughts in your mind that you believe. And so you would give up certain freedoms and change your thoughts in the way of that you believe things are, in order to have a better chance at keeping the relationship healthy and going. And it's all for the sake of not wanting to be alone. You know, you find that person and they seem like a good match for you, and things seem to be great at first, but the moment things start to sour, you immediately start to think that it's your fault, that you're the reason for the failing relationship. So you need to make changes. You need to bow down to them, or you know, give things up for them, change your lifestyle, change how you behave and the way you eat, or the way you behave, like exercise, or all these. There's hundreds of different examples of things that people have changed when they're in an unhealthy relationship, so that it can last and they can make it work, despite the reality of the situation is that it's not going to work. It's just, how long is it going to take for you to suddenly realize this before you'll either get away from it, or that person just has had enough and ends it themselves, right? Like it's like a game. You're playing in a game, and either you're going to figure it out before they have enough, or they're going to quit, and then you're going to be brokenhearted and devastated, and you're just going to fall back into that hole, and you got to start over. So what ended up happening is, in December, she had to go to Ontario because her mother was having surgery. It was expected to just be like a week, and then she'd be back, you know, it wasn't supposed to be anything unusual. And then she found out that her mother had an unexplained or an unrealized blockage, and she went into a coma and never did come out, and she passed away on Christmas Day. Like, of all the days to have a family member pass away on you, Christmas Day, like, oh my God, that was sad. But she, of course, was just never the same after that. And I remember in March when she ended it, her explanation that she gave to me was that she didn't want to be in a similar situation that her mother was in with her father, where her father never appreciated her. You know, it was like a narcissistic kind of relationship. And I just remember being really upset and going, you're comparing me to your parents, and you actually think that this is how it's going to be? This is how our relationship is going to be? And I couldn't believe it. Like, it was like, oh my God, she's so full of shit. It's just, how dare she compares me to something she has no idea. Like, how can she say that that's going to happen? That's never even been a thing in our relationship. That's so bull. And so, needless to say, it was done. And for a little while, it was devastating. I wasn't thrilled, obviously. But a few months later or so, I finally woke up and I realized that this would never have worked. She wasn't healthy. She always spent money. She was in a great deal of debt. She never really had a full-time job. She was kind of pie in the sky thoughts and on her career. And her thoughts on marriage were different than mine. And it didn't even occur to me, because I was blinding myself. I was refusing to see all the reality of this. And when I finally did, which was months after it ended, it really woke me up. Like, I said to myself, I will never be in a situation like this again. I'm not going to to blind myself from this and refuse to see the light. And I should be going back in time to myself in 2012 and saying, yeah, right, kid. You think you won't, but you will. Anyway, if it wasn't for the fact that I had my mental health got really kind of rough not long after that. I experienced some health related issues, and it really, let's just say this is what kind of restarted and woke the whole trauma and anxiety and high stress life that I had been living. Because up until that point, things were pretty good. Like I felt good. I was single again. I was looking at, I had finally moved out. I was in an apartment, and I was just, the thing is that I felt kind of alone. Like I wanted to be around people. So I was around my family a lot, and I had my dog, and it didn't feel like, it just wasn't 100% right. But at the same time, physically and mentally, I was okay. And then things started to go bad in that summer of 2012. Stuff was starting to really take off. Like I was having these issues with leg pain and unexplained like feelings in my neck and my arms and my legs, and it was really starting to freak me out. And I remember going to Saskatchewan in August of 2012 or 2013, 2013. And I had this really strange allergic reaction to medication that I was taking that my doctor gave me for restless leg syndrome. And I had this weird outbreak, and I was breaking out in hives all over, and it occurred while I was driving to Saskatchewan, and my mom was there and my brother was there. And I just remember going, what the hell is going on? Why am, like, it's got to be the medication, So I didn't know for sure. I thought it was something I ate, I had all these crazy feelings and expectations and misunderstandings about it. And then finally in Saskatchewan, a pharmacist told me what it was likely the case. So I stopped taking it. It took a few days for the drugs to get out of my system. And then I got back home, and my doctor said, well, we need to confirm. So I had to start taking it in order for me to know for sure. And sure enough, the medication was the cause of it. And that was the beginning. And yeah, and then things just kind of soured there. Like I remember I was having a lot of difficulties, all these unexplained pains and feelings and sensations, and like I said, in my legs and arms. And I think the thing that kind of started, there was this weird feeling in the one side of my face. It felt kind of numb and really weird feeling. And it hasn't happened. Like it only was a couple times, and then it never happened again, which was kind of like cool. Like I'm glad that it didn't happen again, but it really freaked me out. And I made the mistake of doing online self-diagnosis, which I'm going to tell you, do not do. This is just stupid. You're just going to scare yourself, because you can't get any kind of definite information at all from that. So what I'm saying is just let it go. Don't do that. Anyway, so I dealt with this for, oh my Lord, quite a few years. And even though I saw therapists, like physiotherapists, and I saw a naturopath, and I was talking to some other doctors, and it came to a point where enough time had passed, and the reality is that this wasn't what was happening. I wasn't going to die. There wasn't anything really serious. And then I had an MRI done on my back and my neck, and I learned a few things that I had no idea. I had a neck injury from when I was playing football that I completely did not know I had. And there was all sorts of issues that were being created because of my neck injury. Now I know that my back had been hurt, and it was causing some issues with like pain in my back from walking. But there was a lot of discomfort and other things that were starting to occur that I didn't really know would happen. And so it soon dawned upon me that all the issues that I was experiencing were due to my neck injury and my back injury. And the thing is I kept doubting it. Like I kept, every time I would have symptoms come back, like it seemed like it was every month and a half or so, and it would keep coming back. It just kind of felt like I was second guessing. Like maybe the doctors didn't really know. Maybe this isn't actually what it is. Maybe it really is happening. Maybe it just, all these excuses and all these explanations and all these theories and ideas that I had. And there was actually a point where I think I was seeing my doctor like once a week, like, and explaining this and trying to have him say, why is this happening and that happening? And yet the whole time I never was able to tell him what was going on in my head, what I was actually thinking was happening. And it was really starting to get scary because I was too afraid that if I were to bring it up, that they'd find something, right? Rather than him being able to officially rule it out and say, no, you this is ridiculous, or no, this definitely is not what's happening. I was too scared because I would think that if I did go, that they would find it, and then that would be reality. And then it would literally scare me so much that I would just, I don't know, like I couldn't even think about it too much because it was so scary and so overwhelming mentally that I just had to avoid it. So I found different ways to dissociate and to zone out from it. So I was overeating. I would just sit and watch movies or TV all day. I would, there were all these things that I would do to soothe myself and to calm my body down, because thinking of alternate realities and all these possibilities was just too much for me. And I couldn't, because I would literally a lot of nights go to bed and my mind would start to focus on it and obsess. And I would get so scared that I couldn't sleep. My heart would race, my mind would go, and I just couldn't sleep. I'd lay there for hours, freaked out and scared, and I didn't have anybody to talk to. It's not like I could call up somebody at 3 a.m, right? Like, it was just scary. And I went through years of this, and then it wasn't, the worst part is it wasn't until 2018 that I was seeing this physiotherapist in Stony Plain, which is about a half an hour west of Edmonton. And I finally had the nerve to tell him what I kept thinking about while all this was going on. And he straight up, he didn't laugh, he didn't mock or make fun of me or in any negative way. He just said, no, I assure you, if that had been the case, we would have discovered it. We would have known with all the tests and all the, examinations that they do on my body to determine what's going on. He would have figured it out, and then there would have been an alarm, and he would have, recommended going to the doctor and get, all that stuff. So, and that, I think that was the first time in literally 5 years that I had finally been able to calm myself and finally get this whole belief out of my head that there was something going on with me that was going to kill me. And slowly I started to finally feel good. And I just remember I felt capable again of maybe finding somebody and dating them. And I had a couple of dates that seemed to go well. One didn't have the courage to tell me how she felt until later and allowed me to kiss her, which was really unfair. You know, like if she didn't feel that way, she should have stopped me. I get how there's this being scared of saying no to men. I understand that. And I'm really sad and I'm sorry that this is how it is for a lot of you. And that's what it comes to. And I wish that wasn't the case for any of you. That's not right. And then the other one, which was really the last person before I met, my most recent that I was with. And we had met a couple times and it seemed like it could have worked. I don't know what happened. I'm not really sure. I don't exactly think about it too much, but that ultimately did not work. And then I took a break because I kind of had to think about stuff. I had to take some time to just not think about it. And then literally 2 weeks after getting back onto the online dating scene, I started talking to my girlfriend or my ex-girlfriend. And we talked for over a month and we talked on the phone and we finally met in late January and things just worked. That was amazing. It was so nice. It worked out. And I remember for the first 6-7 months, it was great. We did a lot of talking. We were up till sometimes 2 a.m. talking on the phone. And eventually that stopped. We didn't do that as anymore. And then we started hanging out in person. And then obviously, we started the relationship. But that's the thing is I hadn't dated somebody in 8 years. I know it's hard to believe that somebody could go 8 years without even dating or anything really. And I had forgot for the most part about why the other two didn't work. And it was my CPTSD, and I wasn't even aware of it. I didn't even know about it until maybe a year into our relationship. And I started to learn about it, and I started to realize that, yes, I had CPTSD. I had a lot of being scared of failure. Of the 4 Fs, I did a lot of freeze and fawn, where I would try to do anything I could just to make them happy, to avoid fights. I had an avoidance personality because I was afraid of fighting. I didn't want, because I felt like things would end. I wasn't true to myself, and I did a lot of groveling and changing my life styles and doing things in a different way because I wanted the relationship to work. I truly felt, and the thing is we both felt that this was it, right? That this would be the one. And so that mindset got in there, and I just remember I wanted it to work. So I wanted to do whatever I could to make it work. And I learned a lot about patience, and I learned a lot about, changing and accommodation and making, sacrifices, but also, and it was a struggle, was also getting things for myself, like if I wasn't happy to reach out and say something, it just kind of felt like it was slowly heading downhill. And a lot of it was because of my own issues. I was not capable of seeing that I was struggling, that I couldn't do this. Like it was scary. And all I wanted to do was make it work. And yet my parts, see, this is where it finally started to make sense, is my parts were rebelling and were trying to fight the fight for me. It was the parts that were fighting the fight. It wasn't the adult. The adult wasn't the one standing up for himself and taking a stand and making it right for himself. And in reality, I probably should have ended it a lot sooner than I did, than it eventually ended. But I refused to see the reality. My parts were fighting for me and were trying to stand up to her and do the right thing. But being children, they're truly not capable of doing the right thing, because all they know is what they know when they were children. And I had a lot of growing up to do. I had a lot of work. I just don't think I had everything in the right place at that time. And I should have known this. I should have seen this a lot sooner, and I didn't. And trauma is a bitch sometimes, because it's so hard for somebody for such a long time to see the truth, to see the real reality of everything that's going on. You only notice at first, and it's so difficult to decipher and to take up and to separate all the different aspects of what's happening. And I had a very difficult time. Like, I was getting so frozen and so triggered and traumatized that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't say much. I couldn't make sense of things. I would do and say things that were childish or irresponsible that got me into trouble, because I couldn't separate everything and I couldn't see it happening in the moment. And the trauma aspect of this was really playing in its big part in this all. And it's not that I refused to see it. I was trying to do the right thing. I was trying to see all this and work on it. It's just that I was having such a difficult time, because my understanding and my ability to kind of know everything as was going on right then and there was really poor. I didn't have good skills at all when it came to that. And so, of course, I'm struggling and trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Why is this occurring? What am I doing wrong? I don't understand. And on top of it, I'm fighting all these feelings, and there's two different sides coming at each other, like two opposites that are, one's like, you got to do whatever you can to fix this. This isn't, you don't want to lose this. At the same time, I've got the child parts that are going, you're not taking care of yourself. Why can't you see reality? She's not being fair to you. She's being unruly. She's not giving you any chance to, she's not being supportive enough. She's not being understanding. And you're just sitting there taking it. And we end up having to fight for you. But because we're children, we don't know how to fight as an adult. We don't know how to be respectful. We don't know how to do this in an adult way and to get our needs met and to respect boundaries and so on and so on. they just do it in a childish way. They say childish things, and they say rude comments, and they say ridiculous things that don't make any sense or that are clearly childish comments. And I had such a hard time separating the two of them. Fact from fiction, reality and fantasy. And I have been examining a lot of what's had been going on, and a lot of what's going on now. And there's been a lot of breakthroughs and more information finally coming out, and I'm finally able to truly understand what was happening. And it's really difficult because there's a lot of negative feelings. There's a lot of sadness and fear, and there's a lot of scary moments that I have to face. Like, I can't run away from this. I have to face these fears and the frightening moments. Otherwise, I'm just not going to learn from it. Like, there's no way you can learn if you don't face it and don't see the reality of what is happening. Because if you don't face them, you don't face your fears, like they say, you're never going to move forward. You're just going to be stagnant, or you're going to end up falling back and having to start over. So here's the bottom line for everybody. If you're someone who suffers from CPTSD, okay, and it doesn't matter really what stage you are in your healing process, whether you're just beginning, whether you're near the end, whether you feel like you've healed and that you've got things under control, you have to be prepared. You have to be strong, and you have to be willing and ready to stand up for yourself and set those boundaries. Do what's best for yourself. Take care of yourself. You got to meet your needs. You got to make sure that you are looked after. Mentally, you're looked after. Physically, you look after yourself. You cannot bow down to anybody. You can't let yourself be trampled on. You have to know and be ready and be prepared for this. If you are not prepared, you're going to just relapse, or you're never going to make it far, because you have to feel ready, and you have to have your parts trusting you, because there is no such thing as a perfect relationship. There's always going to be something that happens at some point that's going to cause grief and an argument or a miscommunication, a breakdown. It's not going to be all fine and dandy and flowers and roses and candy and all that crap 365, 24 hours a day. There's going to be times where you're going to have arguments and disagreements, and you might have a fight, and, take time apart for hours or a day just to get over it, to recover. And you have to be ready for these things. Otherwise, you're just going to continue to fail and go from one relationship to the other, following that same path, that same unhealthy path. And you've got to be ready, because that's the only way you're going to get to that step of having a healthy relationship and feeling good and feeling safe and, being in a situation that you're good with and happy with. And at the same time that your partner feels safe and happy too. It's never going to be perfect, but at least you can be ready for anything and still be the adult and not allow yourself to get re-triggered and have another traumatic event that is not what you want. You want to feel safe in any relationship. And there you have it, another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. I hope this was a great episode and helpful for all of you out there listening. If you find that this kind of episode is really informative and helpful for you, then please give me a shout. Let me know what you feel and how you're thinking about this. You can get in touch with me either via email. The email address is livingwithadhdandcptsd@gmail.com. If you want to contact me on Twitter, by all means, my Twitter handle is @ADHD and CPTSD. You can also get a hold of me at Mastodon. That is a relatively new social site, kind of like Twitter. You can also go to my website, www.livingwithadhdandcptsd.ca. If you would like to help me out, whether it's donation or even becoming a member, you can go to my Patreon page. Just look for Living with ADHD and CPTSD. You can go to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com, and you can donate there any amount you feel is acceptable. It doesn't really matter. And you could also become a subscriber to Apple Podcasts, and it's a small monthly fee you can pay to get access to episodes like this early, and other episodes that aren't available to the public. All right, everyone, that is this episode. I hope you have a great day, and I shall talk to you later. Bye, everyone.